today to take a look at alcohol burners and the different types of stove that you can get for these, and test some of them out, compare them, see if any one is better than the other, basically. Now, the first one I'm going to be looking at is the traditional Trangia type stove, and my one comes in this Campark cook set, which I've used before in previous videos. Really great all together cook set with pots and pans and things in. I'll show you, but I've had this for about 20 years now. I got it when I was a kid. First ever kind of camping stove and cook set I got. I don't know if Campark are still in production making these sets, but I know there are two variations. There was this one that comes with a Trangia stove, and then there was one in a blue bag, which instead of coming with the stove, it came with a kettle instead. But as well as the Trangia stove itself, you've got a pretty complete kit here. There's this pan, which also serves as a lid for the frying pan. You can take that strap off that holds it all together, it just kind of buckles on. On the bottom there, you've got the frying pan. Inside here, you've got part of the stove there. You've got a saucepan with a lid. Inside there, you've got your burner. Some little dishes, two different sizes that have got handles as well, so you can kind of use them as a cup if you need to. Another part of the stove, the bottom part. These two plates, and this is the only thing in this set I don't really like. These are just so small, I don't know what I would ever use these for. They're kind of pointless, like what could you really use a plate that small for? But I guess they're there if you need them for anything. Well, I've used this pot here, this saucepan, dozens and dozens of times over the years, and it's a little bit stained on the bottom, but not much. I mean, considering how often I've used this with all types of different fuel and stoves, it's still in really good condition. I mean, this is really good quality gear. As I say, I don't know if Campark even still exists anymore as a company and a brand. Here's the stove all together. It's very easy to put together. You just got the two parts, this bit, which was kind of that way, that goes upside down, that goes on top there, and then you just twist it on to lock it in place. And then inside there you've got the space for the alcohol burner, and then just some prongs to put the saucepan on. And here's the burner that came with the Campark set. I've had this so long now that it has started to corrode and come apart, so I've had to put some liquid weld on there to fix it, and that's what prompted me to buy a new alcohol burner, which led me down the rabbit hole of these various different stoves I'm going to be looking at today. But this does still work, even though I've had to fix it up a little bit and it's starting to corrode. It does still work even after 20 years. Well, you know, you just put the alcohol in the bottom there and then light it. Pretty simple stuff. Then you have, as well as the main lid that you put on when you're not using it, when you don't have that on, you've got an extra lid here which you can use to put it out. Just put that on there to snuff it out, or you can use this to adjust the heat by opening this bit up to various levels and let various amount of flame through. Just a quick guide for anyone who hasn't used an alcohol burner before. Then whilst I was browsing for a new burner to buy, I come across this stove, which, I mean, these may have been around for 15 years for all I know. I haven't looked at modern alcohol burner stoves because I haven't needed to, but for me this is new. And this is basically just a mini stove that just doesn't come in any of the pots or pans or anything, but you can see it's a lot less cumbersome than the old Trangia stove that I just showed you. So it's quite a clever little invention, really. I haven't tried it yet. I haven't tried this or the next one I'm going to show you because they are new to me, so you're going to be learning along with me how well these actually work. But that comes with the burner, and this burner is a bit bigger than the one that came with my Campark set, so I can't use that with this, but it's pretty much exactly the same thing, though the new one has quite a nifty little addition, which, once again, this may have been around for 15 years or more and I just never knew about it. But on this one, unlike my original, it has a handle that folds down on that lid, which is really handy because it can be a bit difficult when the burner's going to just kind of quickly throw that on there to snuff it out without burning yourself. So it's quite handy that this now comes with a handle that folds out that you can just put on there to put the flame out. There are different ways that you can stand the burner in there. You can either have it right down flat on the bottom there, or if you want to have it a bit higher, it will balance on these 3 prongs around the side. You could even have just that on the ground and that over the top, like that. So you can adjust the height a little bit to adjust the level of heat that you're getting on the bottom of your pan there. And now the third type of stove I'm going to show you is basically just these brackets that come kind of tied together. If we undo that and put them together, they just slide together like that. And then that is the stove. Which seems like a good idea. Like I say, I haven't tested this out, so I don't know how this will work. But I mean, that takes up next to no room, because once taken apart, it's flat to go in your pack. If you want to, you can use that cable that comes with it to hold it together when it's in its stove formation as well. Just goes around the edge there. I'm not sure if that would get in the way of the flame slightly, but that does help to hold it together and stop it from sliding apart. I've put 30 millilitres of water in there, and I'm now timing how long it's going to take to boil on the phone. Now, of course, each of these stoves is a different height. It's holding the water at a different level away from the heat source, so it's not going to be hugely accurate in those terms, but just as a general guide to, if you get the stove out, whack something on there to boil or cook, I want to see which one is the quickest and most fuel efficient. While I'm waiting for that to boil, let's just appreciate what a beautiful day it is out here. Almost the end of September, so there aren't going to be many more days like this, sadly. That's steaming and starting to bubble at the bottom there, so I'd about class that as boiled up, and that took about 6 minutes, say, to get it on a proper boil. I'm just waiting for the saucepan to cool down a bit so it's the same temperature it was when I started with the last stove. But this mini stove will fit inside there, so if you're still wanting to transport your pots and pans but use the smaller stove, you can. And even though the little bracket stove that I showed is really handy because it is so small and folds up flat, at the same time you're going to be taking pots and pans with you when you go out to cook. There's no use having the stove but nothing to cook the food in, so in some ways it doesn't matter having a slightly larger stove like this that fits inside those pots. Though of course you can fit more dishes in there if you don't have to accommodate such a large stove. And of course it's slightly less weight as well to have the brackets rather than this stove or the Trangia. Balance could potentially be an issue with the smaller stoves. The Trangia's pretty solid because it's got a wide base to it. Because this is smaller, it is slightly wobbly, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem as long as you find a reasonably flat bit of ground, which can actually be surprisingly hard sometimes when you're out in the woods. Out here it's actually pretty bumpy, but I found a bit flat enough to support that. It's not going to fall over unless I really whack it. That's steaming and bubbling at about the same level that the last one was when I stopped the stopwatch. and that actually took 6 minutes as well. It's almost exactly the same amount of time. And I actually thought this one would be quicker because the pot isn't as high above the flame as it was with the Trangia, so I thought it would be a bit quicker with this, but no, it's almost dead on exactly the same amount of time. This stove stays very cool to touch as well, even after being on for 6 minutes, bringing that water to a steam and a bit of a boil. That's very, it's not burning me at all. I don't know if it's the type of metal it's made of or the paint that's coating it, but that's quite handy, whereas the Trangia was pretty hot initially to touch. And now for this mini bracket stove, and it'd be interesting to see how well this one fares. Each of these stoves has got progressively lower, so each time the pot is closer to the flame. So really this one should boil the water quicker than the previous two, but we'll see. The last one didn't, so it'd be funny if this one takes 6 minutes as well. It's now been 5 minutes and that's steaming and bubbling at the bottom like the last two, so this one has taken a minute less. So that's the Trangia stove, the mini portable stove and the mini bracket stove. At least that's what I know them as. There are variations on the names for these two in listings you'll find for them. But they all pretty much work the same. There's not much difference in the boiling times for them. This one was slightly quicker, and I was kind of surprised how well this works since it's such a simple idea, but it does work really well. This is also a lot more light than the other two, so you've got less weight in your pack, takes up less space. Though, as I've said earlier, if you're taking some pots and pans with you anyway that you're going to need to cook things on, you can fit this into the pot anyway. So I don't know if there's a massive amount of difference. It really depends what you're taking, I guess. I was quite surprised how equal the results were for those three stoves. So hopefully from that you can kind of guesstimate how long it would take to cook other things. I'd say a meal on there would probably take 10 minutes if you've got a 24-hour ration pack type MRE meal that you're putting in there to cook. It would be heated up by the 6 minute mark like the water was, but to make sure it's sort of thoroughly cooked through, I'd add a few more minutes. But like I say, it's up to you really, what you take from that. You can make your own kind of guesstimates on what it'd be like to cook up different foods on there, but hopefully that's given you a rough idea. Well, I hope that simple test has been useful to some of you who might be thinking of buying an alcohol burner stove and don't know which one to choose. They all pretty much work the same really, but the newer two that I've got are a lot cheaper. They're sort of £5 to £10 each, though I do love that camp out set because it is so complete. You get all the pots and pans, everything you would need really comes in that set. So you don't have to worry about trying to find a pot from here and a pan from there to kind of cobble together your own kit, though sometimes that can be cheaper to do and you can kind of make it more specific to your own needs to do that. But that camp out set for me is really great. Part of that is nostalgia because I've had it for 20 years and it's the first one I got. I do still love it. So thanks for watching everyone, and I'll hopefully catch you all again soon.